should we pick? All right, I guess we'll do Gurudev again. All right. Let's see. Okay, good. Let's go. Okay, here we go. Up into the Akorowe Tase Trina Pekatina Ripak into the Akorowe Tase Trina Pekatina Sakalatsu Kane Olo the Akoro Nijamane sprayakina Sakalatsa kane Molodia koro Nijamane sprayakina Sakale saman kurite shakati Eho nata jata jata Sakale saman korente shakati Eho nata jata jata Tabi go kaibo Harina masuke Aparada koibe ata Tabitoga yibo Adina masuke Aparada hoibe ata Kabi haino kripa lopiya jana Kritarta hoibe lansa Kabi haino kripa Jana Ritarta hoibe nata Shaki purehin Ami atitin Koromore atmasa Shaki purehin Ami atitin Koromore atmasaka Yokata vichare kichunai poi Tomara karuna sara Yokata vichare kichunai poi Tomara karuna sara Kandiya Prananara Kibawara Koranana Goite Kandiya Prananara Kibawara Kude Creep a bend to the go away Tase Bekagati Nina Adena. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya, Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane, Namaste, Saraswati Deve, Gauravati, Pacharani, Nivashesha Shunyavati, Paschatya Deshatarani. So we are going to read the translation of this very nice poem written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur entitled Gurudev, and it's from the book of poems that he wrote called Sharanagati, that means the path of surrender. So Gurudev, give this servant just one drop of mercy. I am lower than a blade of grass. Give me all help, give me strength. Let me be as you are, without desires or aspirations. Gurudev, I offer you all respects, for thus I may have the energy to know you correctly. Then by chanting the holy name in great ecstasy, all my offenses will cease. Gurudev, when will such mercy fall to this one who is weak and devoid of intelligence? Allow me to be with you. Gurudev, if you examine me, you will find no good qualities. Your mercy is all that I am made of. If you are not merciful unto me, I can only weep, and I will not be able to maintain my life. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. So now we will continue with our study of the Caitanya Bhagavat. We're on the Antya Kanda, sort of towards the end of the Antya Kanda, chapter 5. It's a very long chapter. There's something like almost 800 verses in this chapter. I think it's the longest chapter in the Caitanya Bhagavat. Okay, so with that in mind, we are going to read the Caitanya Bhagavat. So, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So Omagana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Oh my God. So, let us share the screen, and then we will continue. And we are on text 496, which is the next text in this chapter, chapter 5 of the Antya Lila. Let me just move this window aside. So this is, of course, this chapter is called The Glories of Nityananda. So thereafter, Nityananda took permission from Advaita Acharya and departed for Navadvip. He was going to Navadvip to see Sachi Mata, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mother. All right. He first went to the house of Mother Sachi and offered obeisances at her feet. On seeing Nityananda's Swarup, Mother Sachi's happiness was boundless. Mother Sachi said, "My dear son, you are certainly the super soul, for I just had the desire to see you. Realizing my desire, you came quickly here. Therefore, who within this world can understand you? My dear son, stay here in Navadvip for some days so that I can see you every 10, 15, or 30 days. I am distressed and desire to see you. Now, by the arrangement of Providence, you have come to remove my distress." On hearing Mother Sachi's words, Nityananda smiled, for he knew the beginning and end of Mother Sachi's glories. Nityananda said, "Listen, Mother Sachi, O Mother of all, I've come here to see you. I had a great desire to see you here. Therefore, on your order, I will stay in Navadvip." After speaking with Mother Sachi in this way, Nityananda happily wandered throughout Navadvip. Nityananda enjoyed kirtan pastimes with his associates in each of the houses within Navadvip. After arriving in Navadvip, Nityananda Prabhu became the personification of ecstasy and kirtan. Simply on seeing his most enchanting dress as the leader of the Sankirtan party, pious people were greatly satisfied. His head was decorated with various silk cloths upon which was placed various flower garlands. Around his neck he wore varieties of necklaces made with jewels, pearls, and gold. His ears were adorned with gold earrings set with pearls. He wore beautiful gold armlets and bracelets. I do not know how many flower garlands decorated his body. His entire body was smeared with sandalwood pulp mixed with goro chana. He always sported like a coward boy. He effortlessly held a wonderful iron staff. His 10 fingers were all decorated with gold rings. He was most charmingly dressed with varieties of white, blue, and yellow silk cloth. He had a cane, a flute, and a bamboo stick stuck in his belt. By seeing and remembering him, the minds of everyone in the world become enchanted. His lotus feet were adorned with silver ankle bells and bands which produced sweet sounds as he moved like the king of elephants. In whichever direction Nityananda Prabhu glanced, everyone became filled with the mellows of love for Krishna. In this way, Nityananda resided in Navadvip, the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, in great happiness. Navadvip is just like the capital city of Mathura. No one knew how many people lived there. There were so many pious people that simply by seeing them, sinful people became liberated from all sinful reactions. Many sinful people also lived among them. Simply by touching their shadows, all one's religious principles were destroyed. Yet by the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, they were also brought to the path of pure Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya personally delivered many living entities, and through Nityananda he delivered the 3 worlds. In some way or other, Nityananda delivered the thieves, the rogues, the fallen, and the wretched. So as I mentioned yesterday, Lord Nityananda was specifically concentrating on the fallen people, whereas Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, well, he also saved the fallen, but he was dealing more or less with the upper echelon of society, like the intellectuals. Now listen to the topics of how Nityananda Prabhu delivered the dacoits. This is a wonderful story. In Navadvip there lived One particular Brahmin's son who had no equal among the dacoits and rogues. That means he was the worst. He was the leader of all other dacoits. Dacoits means like thief, murderer, criminal, etc. That evil-minded person was a Brahmana in name only. He mercilessly killed others and always remained in the company of other dacoits. One time, he saw that Nityananda Swarup was decorated with divine necklaces and ornaments made of gold, coral, jewels, and pearls. On seeing the various valuable ornaments on the Lord's body, that dacoit Brahmin decided to steal them. Wherever Nityananda went, that Brahmana stealthily followed him for the purpose of stealing his wealth. Nityananda, as super soul in everyone's heart, knew the intentions of that wicked-minded Brahmin. Someone keeps... In Navadvip, there lived one qualified Brahmin named Hiranya Pandit, who had no material assets. Nityananda left his associates and quietly resided in the house of that fortunate Hiranya Pandit. The sinful Brahmin was most wicked. He gathered the other dacoits and made a plan. "Oh, brothers, why are we still suffering? Goddess Chandi," that's an expansion of Durga, has provided for us a treasure in one place. The ornaments decorating the body of this Avaduta are all made of gold, pearls, and diamonds. I cannot say how many hundreds of thousands of rupees his ornaments are worth, and the goddess Chandi has brought them together in one place. He lives alone in the house of Hiranya. We can go there and take everything within a half an hour. Collect your swords and shields, for tonight we will raid that house." After making plans in this way, the dacoits waited for the night, and then set out for the house. Equipped with swords, knives, and tridents, they gathered near the house where Nityananda was staying. Those dacoits all waited at one place while they sent a spy to check out the situation. Nityananda Prabhu was taking his meal, and the devotees were chanting the name of Hari in the four directions. The servants of Nityananda were so intoxicated in the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness that some of them roared like lions and some thundered. Some cried in the mellows of ecstatic love, while others laughed loudly and clapped their hands. Others called out, "Hoya, hoya!" In the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness, no one slept. The spy returned and said to the dacoits, "The Avaduta has taken his meal, and the others are all awake." The dacoits replied, "Let them eat and go to sleep. We will wait a while and then raid the house." All the dacoits sat under a tree, satisfied that they would soon plunder someone's wealth. One of them said, "I will take his gold bracelets." Another said, "I will take his pearl necklace." Someone else said, "I will take his earrings." One said, "I will take his gold necklace." Someone said, "I will take his silver ankle bells." In this way, they all dreamt about the wealth they expected to get. By the will of Nityananda, at that time the goddess of sleep cast her glance on the dacoits. All the dacoits fell asleep at that place. They became practically unconscious in deep sleep. They were so bewildered by the Lord's potency that they did not wake up even when the night had passed. Then the crows began to call out, in other words, daybreak, and the dacoits awoke. They were all unhappy to see that night had already passed. They quickly hid their swords and shields in the forest and went to take bath in the Ganges. Thereafter the dacoits abused each other as they returned to their homes. One dacoit said, "You fell asleep first," and another replied, "As if you were awake." Another said, "Why are you quarreling? Chandi has saved us from embarrassment." The sinful Brahmin, who was leader of the dacoits, said, "Why quarrel any more? Whatever has happened took place by the will of Chandi. We lost only one day, but there will be others. I think Chandi has bewildered us today because he went first without worshipping her. Let us go together and properly worship Chandi with wine and meat." Yuck. After making plans in this way, all the dacoits worshipped Chandi with wine and meat. The next day the dacoits took up various weapons. They dressed in blue cloth and looked like brave heroes. In the dead of night, when everyone was asleep, the dacoits surrounded the house. As the dacoits came near the house, They saw that it was guarded by many soldiers. Oh my God. These soldiers were armed, and they surrounded the house on all four sides, and they constantly chanted the name of Hori. They had large, powerful bodies, and they looked most formidable, being equipped with various weapons. The dacoits could see that each of these soldiers was powerful enough to kill 100 people in a moment. They all had flower garlands, their bodies were smeared with sandalwood paste, and they continuously engaged in congregational chanting the holy names. Nityananda Prabhu was sleeping as those soldiers chanted the name of Krishna in the four directions. On seeing the situation, the dacoits were struck with wonder. They went away from the house and sat down on one side. Then the dacoits all began to discuss among themselves. From where have all these soldiers come? One dacoit said, the Avaduta must have somehow or other understood our plan and borrowed these soldiers from someone. Another said, oh brothers, I have heard from a number of people that this Avaduta is very wise. This Avaduta Mahashaya is so intelligent he arranges for his own protection. Otherwise, those soldiers we saw did not even look like human beings. I think people call him Goswami because he has such great influence. Someone else said, oh brother, you're a fool. How can one who eats and dresses like him be called a Goswami? The Brahmin leader of the dacoits said, I know the reason. Many influential persons come from all over to see this Avaduta. A king's military commander has come from somewhere with many of his soldiers. Those soldiers are all sentimental, and therefore they chant the name of Hari. This is not the right time. Since the soldiers are here, we will wait for a few days. So let us all go home today, O brothers. We will wait quietly for about 10 days. After their leaders spoke in this way, the dacoits all returned to their homes. Meanwhile, Avaduta Chandra Prabhu continued to enjoy his pastimes. By remembering even those who worship the lotus feet of Nityananda, all obstacles are vanquished. So when Nityananda Prabhu himself enjoys his pastimes, who can create any obstacles? Who can place impediments before the Lord when all ignorance is destroyed by remembering even his servant? Ganesh, the destroyer of all obstacles, and his associates engage in his service, Rudra, whose plenary portion annihilates the universe, and when Ananta, his plenary portion, becomes restless, the entire universe trembles. How then can that Nityananda Prabhu be afraid of anyone? Long purport. He freely performed kirtan throughout Navadvip, and he freely enjoyed pastimes of eating and sleeping. With priceless ornaments decorating his entire body, he looked just like Baladev, the son of Rohini. He chewed betel nuts mixed with camphor, and his sweet smile enchanted people of the entire world. He fearlessly and happily wandered about everywhere in the company of the devotees. The sinful dacoits soon made another plan and gathered near the house where Nityananda Chandra was staying. By the arrangement of Providence, it was completely dark that night because of dense clouds. No other persons were out that night. On that formidable night, each of the dacoits carried 5 to 10 weapons. As soon as they entered the courtyard of the house, they were completely blinded and unable to see anything. Those dacoits became so blind they could not see a thing, and their life heirs, their intelligence, and their minds became paralyzed. Some fell into the trench and were bitten by leeches, insects, and bees. Some fell into a pit where food remnants were thrown and suffered from the bites of insects and scorpions. Some fell on thorns that pierced their entire bodies so they were unable to move. Some fell into a hole wherein their hands and legs were broken and they began to cry. Some of the dacoits there were afflicted by fever, but every one of them became frightened. At that time, the mischievous Indra sent a great rainstorm there. First, the dacoits suffered the bites of leeches and insects, and then they suffered further from the great rainstorm. Hail fell on them, yet they did not die, but simply floated in an ocean of misery. Then one lightning bolt struck there, and they forgot themselves and lost consciousness out of fear. Because of the heavy rain, the dacoits were completely soaked and began to shiver from the extreme cold. They were blinded and unable to see a thing, and now they suffered from the great rainstorm and cold. Realizing that they had come to trouble Nityananda, the angry Indra awarded them severe punishment. After some time, the Brahmana leader of those dacoits suddenly had a thought out of some good fortune. The Brahmana thought Nityananda is not a human being. He is certainly the Supreme Lord. He cannot be an ordinary man. One day he bewildered us with sleep, yet we could not understand because of the influence of the Lord's illusory energy. But another day he showed us those most wonderful soldiers, but still we did not come to our senses. This suffering is appropriate for sinful persons like us, for we tried to plunder the Lord's wealth. So who can protect me from this great danger? I have no shelter other than Nityananda. After thinking in this way, the Brahmana meditated and took complete shelter of the lotus feet of Nityananda. By meditating on his lotus feet, even one who has committed millions of offenses is immediately delivered from all difficulties. O Nityananda, O Sri Balagopal, please protect me. O Lord, you are the maintainer of all living entities. Please protect me. O Lord, if a person falls forcefully to the ground, the earth again supports him. Those who trip and fall have only the ground to support to again get up. Similarly, O Lord, those who commit offenses to you have no one but you for refuge. In the same way, the distress of one who commits offenses at your lotus feet is destroyed simply by remembering you. I have killed brahmanas and cows. O Lord, there is no greater offender than me. If the most sinful person takes shelter of you, he is freed from all material bondage. O Lord, you protect the living entities from the time of their birth and also at the time of their death. O Lord, please protect me from this calamity today. If I survive, I will remember this lesson. Birth after birth, you are my Lord, and I am your servant. Whether I live or die, I have no other desire. When the most merciful Nityananda Chandra heard those prayers, he delivered those dacoits. As the dacoits thought like this, they regained their eyesight. By the influence of surrendering to Nityananda Swarupa, they were freed from the distress caused by the rainstorm. Shortly thereafter, the dacoits found their way and returned home almost dead. After returning home in this way, the dacoits immediately went to take bath in the Ganges. It's interesting. The Brahmana leader of the dacoits then came crying to the lotus feet of Nityananda. Nityananda, the Lord of the universe, was sitting, casting his merciful glance on the fallen souls. The devotees in the four directions were chanting the name of Hari, and the crest jewel, the avadutas, roared in ecstasy. At that time, that great dacoit Brahmana arrived there, raised his arms and called out, "Please protect me," and offered his obeisances. The hairs of his entire body stood on end, and he shed incessant tears while his body trembled. He constantly roared and thundered in ecstatic love. That Brahmana lost all external consciousness as he cried. While seeing the opulences of Nityananda Swarup, he began to dance in joy. He raised his arms and repeatedly called out, "O Nityananda, deliver the fallen souls. Save me." When everyone saw the behavior of the dacoit, they were struck with wonder and thought, how could such a dacoit behave like this? Someone said he must be playing some trick. Under this pretext, he may raid the house later. Someone else said, Nityananda is the deliverer of the fallen souls. By his mercy, his heart has changed. On seeing the transformations of ecstatic love in that Brahmana, Nityananda smiled and inquired from him. The Lord said, "Tell me, O Brahmana, what kind of behavior is this? I see your behavior appears most wonderful. Did you see or hear something that gave you a realization of Krishna? Do not worry, tell everything frankly." Hearing the Lord's words, the fortunate Brahmana could not speak but continued to cry. He rolled on the ground throughout the courtyard. He spontaneously laughed, cried, danced, and sang. After some time, the Brahmana became pacified and began to speak to the Lord. "O Lord, I live in this Nadia. Although I am known as a Brahmana, my behavior is like that of a hunter or dog-eater. I always engage in thievery in the company of wicked people. Since birth, I have done nothing but commit violence to others. The people of Navadvip tremble in fear when they see me. There is no sin I have not committed. When I saw your body was decorated with valuable ornaments, I decided to steal them. One day I brought my band of armed dacoits to steal the ornaments from your divine body. That night, O Lord, you bewildered us with sleep, but by your illusory energy I could not understand this. Another night, we worshipped Chandi with various ingredients and then came with choppers, knives, and tridents. That night we saw something wonderful. The entire house was surrounded by soldiers. Each soldier was as powerful as a mad elephant. They were all decorated with garlands that reached down to their knees. They all incessantly chanted the name of Hari as you blissfully slept inside the house. Yet our hearts were so sinful that we could not understand your glories. We thought that the soldiers had come from another place. Thinking like this, we returned home that night. Then after a few days, we came again that last night. But as soon as we came, we lost our vision. When I entered the courtyard of the house with my band of dacoits, we all lost our vision and fell into various places. We suffered greatly from thorns, leeches, insects, rainstorm, and hail. Being afflicted in this way, we had no strength to return home. Yet, when we had thus suffered the punishment of Yamraj, we eventually developed devotion to you. By your mercy, we remembered your lotus feet with full attention. Then our vision was restored. Such is your greatness, O deliverer of the fallen. That we are all released from such suffering is not the real benefit of remembering you. By remembering you, one is freed from all bondage of ignorance and easily attains the abode of Vaikuntha. As the Brahmana spoke, he cried loudly, "Such are the pastimes of Avaduta Nityananda Prabhu." When everyone heard what had happened, they were astonished. Then they all offered obeisances to the Brahmana. The Brahmana said, "O Lord, now let me go. It is not proper for me to keep this body any longer. Since I intended to harm you, my atonement should be to drown myself in the Ganges." On hearing the sincere words of the Brahmana, the Lord and the devotees became pleased. The Lord said, "O Brahmana, you are most fortunate. You are certainly Krishna's servant, birth after birth. Otherwise, why would he bestow such mercy on you? Who other than his servant can see such opulence? Caitanya Bhagavat has appeared to deliver the fallen souls. There's no doubt about this. Listen, O Brahman, I will relieve you of whatever sins you have committed if you do not commit them again. Give up violence to others, stealing, and other immoral activities. Do not do such things again. Lead a religious life and chant the name of Hari. Then you can also deliver others. You should gather all the rogues and the dacoits together and induce them to lead religious lives." After speaking these words, Nityananda took the garland from his neck and happily gave it to the Brahmana. Everyone then chanted, "Joy, joy!" In this way, the Brahmana was relieved from all material bondage. The Brahmana caught hold of the Lord's lotus feet, shed tears, and lamented with great humility. "O Nityananda Prabhu, O deliverer of the fallen, please give this sinful person shelter at your lotus feet. Since I desire to harm you, what will be the fate of this sinful person?" Nityananda Prabhu, the ocean of mercy, then placed his lotus feet on that Brahmana's head. Having received the Lord's lotus feet on his head, all the Brahmana's offenses were nullified. By the influence of that Brahmana, all sorts of dacoits took shelter of Lord Chaitanya and led religious lives. They gave up thievery, violence to others, and immoral activities and behaved like great saintly persons. They all chanted the name of Hari hundreds of thousands of times, and they became expert in the devotional service of Lord Vishnu. They became intoxicated with love for Krishna and constantly chanted Krishna's names. Sri Nityananda Prabhu is such an ocean of mercy. The shelter of the Supreme Lord was not easily attainable in other incarnations, but Nityananda always induced everyone to surrender to Lord Chaitanya. Any Brahman who does not accept Nityananda Swarup is counted among the thieves and rogues. The transformations of ecstatic love desired by the best of the yogis, like shedding tears, shivering, hair standing on end, and roaring, were achieved by even the thieves and rogues. Such was the potency of Nityananda Swarup. Oh brothers, just worship Nityananda Prabhu, by whose mercy one can attain Lord Gaurachandra. One who hears the topics of Nityananda Prabhu will attain the lotus feet of Lord Gaurachandra. Anyone who hears these topics of delivering the dacoits will see Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Chaitanya, and we have that benediction. In this way, Nityananda fearlessly and happily enjoyed his pastimes. Thereafter, Nityananda and the company of his associates went from village to village and performed blissful kirtan. He visited Kanachoda, Badagachi, and Dolagchia, and sometimes he went to Kulia, which is situated on the other side of the Ganges. The village of Badagachi is especially glorious, for Nityananda Swarup enjoyed many pastimes there. It is difficult to estimate the good fortune of Badagachi village. All the associates of Nityananda Swarup were always filled with great ecstasy. They had no other engagement other than to perform Sankirtan, and they all became increasingly absorbed in the mood of cowherd boys. They carried sticks, flutes, horns, and ropes, and they wore necklaces of gunja, and they decorated their wrists with bangles and bracelets, and their ankles with ankle bells. Their bodies were always filled with the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness, and they manifested the symptoms of pure devotional service like crying, shivering, and hair standing on end. Their beauty was equal to that of Cupid, and they always performed Sankirtan. Having attained their fearless master, Nityananda Prabhu, the devotees were always joyful. I cannot describe all the glories of Nityananda Swarup's servants even in 100 years. Still, I will mention the names of those whom I know, for simply by remembering their names, one is delivered from material existence. The devotees with whom Nityananda enjoyed pastimes are all incarnations of the cowherd boy and cowherd girl associates of Nanda Maharaj. Being prohibited by Nityananda Swarup, I am not disclosing their previous names. Those names are disclosed by Kavi Karnapur in his book Gora Ganik Dipika. His principal associate was Ramdas Mahashaya, who always spoke in the mood of the Supreme Lord. No one could easily understand his words. Nityananda always resided in his heart. Of all the devotees, Ramdas had the most intense feelings of ecstatic love. Krishna resided in his body for 3 months. Murari Chaitanya Das was a renowned associate who sported with large snakes and tigers. We heard about that before. Raghunath Vaidya Upadhyaya was most magnanimous. By his glance, attachment for Krishna would awaken in one's mind. Gadadhar Das was filled with transcendental mellows of ecstatic love. Simply by seeing him, all sinful reactions were destroyed. Sundarananda was an ocean of mellows of ecstatic love. He was the chief of Nityananda Swarup's associates. Pandit Kamalakanta was most grave. Nityananda entrusted the village of Saptagrama to him. Gauridas Pandit was most fortunate, for he accepted Nityananda as his life and soul with his body, mind, and speech. So Gauridas Pandit, he was a cowherd boy, and his disciple was Hridai Chaitanya, who had as his disciple Dukhi Krishnadas. There's a whole story about that, which we don't have time to tell. Purandara Pandit was greatly peaceful and self-controlled. He was extremely dear to Nityananda Swarup. Nityananda was the life and soul of Parameshwari Das. Nityananda enjoyed pastimes in his body. Dhananjaya Pandit was an extraordinary devotee. Nityananda always resided in his heart. Balaram Das was intoxicated with the mellows of ecstatic love. The breezes that touched his body destroyed all sins. Yadunath Kavichandra was filled with the mellows of ecstatic love. Nityananda was always merciful to him. So you're actually getting a lot of spiritual benefit by hearing these names, even though you may not know all the details about these people. Jagadish Pandit was the abode of great effulgence. Nityananda and his associates were his life and soul. Pandita Purushottam took birth in Navadvip. He was the confidential servant of Nityananda Swarup. Nityananda had previously stayed in his house. By his mercy, one's mind would be fixed on Nityananda. Dvija Krishnadas Mahashaya was born in Radhadesh. That's around where Lord Nityananda was born. He enjoyed the association of Nityananda's associates. Kaliya Krishnadas was famous throughout the 3 worlds. By remembering him, one can attain Gaura Chandra. Sadashiva Kaviraj was most fortunate. He had a son named Purushottama Das. The body of Purushottama Das displayed no external consciousness, for Nityananda Chandra resided in his heart. Uddarana Dutt was a great, magnanimous Vaishnava. He was qualified for the service of Nityananda. Mahesh Pandit was the most exalted devotee. Paramananda Upadhyaya was an unalloyed Vaishnava. Gangadas was the son of Chaturabhuja Pandit. Nityananda had previously stayed in his house. Acharya Vaishnavananda was most magnanimous. He was formerly known as Raghunath Puri. Paramananda Gupta Mahashaya was well known. Nityananda enjoyed pastimes in his house. The fortunate Krishnadas was a resident of Badagachi. Nityananda enjoyed pastimes in his house. Krishnadas and Devananda were both pure-hearted. The exalted devotee Acharya Nanda accepted Nityananda as his goal of life. Madhava Ghosh Mahashaya was a singer. Vasudev Ghosh was filled with the mellows of ecstatic love. The most fortunate Jiva Pandit was magnanimous. Nityananda Chandra enjoyed pastimes in his house. The four devotees, Manohar, Narayan, Krishnadas, and Devananda, were dear to Nityananda. I am unable to write about all the servants of Nityananda Chandra, even in 100 years. Each of those servants had thousands of followers. They all accepted Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as their wealth and life. By the mercy of Nityananda, they were all qualified spiritual masters. They were all greatly intoxicated by the mellows of love for Lord Chaitanya. I have mentioned only those who I know. The others will be described by Vedavyas. The last of his servants is Vrindavan Das. He took birth from the womb of Narayani, who was the recipient of the Lord's remnant. So, Vrindavan Das, of course, is the author of this book. So, Vrindavan Das is describing himself. Even today, the Vaishnavas glorify Narayani as the recipient of Lord Chaitanya's remnants. We finished the chapter. Accepting Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul, I, Vrindavan Das, sing the glories of their lotus feet. So, we actually finished the chapter today, which is really interesting to end. Okay. And then we're going to start chapter 6. Yeah, I guess we have 10 minutes to do chapter 6. Thus ends the English translation of the Gaudiya Bhasha of Sri Caitanya Bhagavat, Anjakanda, chapter 5, entitled The Pastimes of Nityananda. And chapter 6 is also dedicated to Lord Nityananda. Chapter 6 is entitled The Glories of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Okay, we'll start with the first verse. All glories to Gaura Chandra, all glories to Nityananda. All glories to all the devotees of the Lord. In this way, Lord Nityananda Chandra enjoyed the ecstasy of kirtan with all of his servants. Nityananda Swarup enjoyed his pastimes as he did in Vrindavan. He sincerely induced everyone in the world to become attached to Sri Krishna Chaitanya. The greatly effulgent Nityananda wandered throughout Navadvip in the company of his enthusiastic associates. His body was decorated with ornaments and garlands. Because he chewed betel nuts mixed with camphor, his lips were reddish. On seeing the pastimes of Nityananda Ram Prabhu, some people became happy and some felt no faith in him. In Navadvip there was one Brahmin who previously studied with Lord Chaitanya. On seeing Nityananda Swarupa's activities, he developed some doubts. He had firm devotion in Chaitanya Chandra, but he was not aware of the potency of Nityananda Swarup. By the arrangement of Providence, that Brahmana went to Nilachal and happily stayed there for some time. The Brahmana went daily to see Lord Chaitanya, for he had great faith in the lotus feet of the Lord. And one day, that Brahmana found an opportunity to privately ask the Lord about something he had on his mind. The Brahmana said, "O Lord, I have something to ask you. Kindly hear me. O Lord, if you consider me your servant, please personally explain something for me. I cannot understand anything about what Nityananda Avaduta is doing in Navadvip. Everyone says he is a sannyasi, but he always chews betel nuts mixed with camphor. The sannyasi is prohibited from touching items made of metal, but his body is decorated with gold, silver, and pearls. He has given up saffron loincloth and wears fine silk cloth. He always decorates himself with sandalwood paste and flower garlands. Why did he give up the danda and take up an iron staff? Why does he always live in the homes of Shudras? I do not find his behavior in accordance with the scriptures, so my mind has become full of doubts." It's good he's revealing this. Everyone says he's a great personality. Then why doesn't he behave according to his ashram? If you consider me your servant, O Lord, then please explain this mystery. The pious Brahmin had made this inquiry at a proper time, So the Lord explained the truth without reservation. On hearing the words of the Brahmana, Sri Gaurasundar smiled and replied, "Listen, O Brahmana, when one is highly qualified, one is not affected by faults or virtues. Nityananda Swarup is pure, just as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. A Brahmana know for certain that Krishna Chandra always enjoys pastimes in the body of Nityananda." Do we miss a text? Text 30. Yeah. Oh, it's not in bold. If an unqualified person imitates his behavior, he will suffer and become implicated in sin. If anyone other than Rudra drinks poison, he will certainly die. This is the verdict of all Puranas. Of course, that's reference to Lord Shiva, who drank poison at the time of the churning of the milk ocean. And because of that, he has a blue mark on his neck. The status of powerful controllers is not harmed by any apparent audacious transgression of morality, such as seeing women, which we may see in them, for they are just like fire which devours everything fed into it to remain unpolluted. Certainly one who is not the supreme personality of Godhead should never, even within his mind, imitate his activities. If out of ignorance one does so, he will be destroyed, just as if he were to imitate Lord Shiva, who drank poison produced from the ocean. Just like you see many of the so-called Shiva Bhaktas, they don't eat poison or drink poison, but they smoke ganja. And, people try to imitate Krishna with his Rasa Lila. Prabhupada gives the example, just like the sun, when it shines on something, even if it shines on a filthy place like some stool or urine, it can actually purify that particular filthy object. Therefore, a person without knowledge who criticizes his activities suffers birth after birth because of his faults. What to speak of criticizing if a person even laughs at a qualified person who performs an immoral activity? He is vanquished. All these truths can be known from Srimad Bhagavatam if one hears from the mouth of a Vaishnava Guru. Now hear attentively what the Srimad Bhagavatam says about what happens to a person who laughs at the behavior of a devotee. Once Krishna and Balaram went for studies. After finishing their studies, they decided to return. They asked their Guru, "What dakshin should we give you?" The Guru then consulted with his wife. When he asked Krishna and Balaram to bring back his dead son, they went straight to the abode of Yamaraj, and they were ordered the child was delivered from the reactions of his karma. They then brought the child from the abode of Yamaraj and returned him to their spiritual master. When Devaki heard about this wonderful incident, she also asked them to return her dead sons. Okay, so I think we're going to end here and take some questions, because there's interesting narration coming up here. And this chapter is actually very, very short. Okay, we stop sharing, and we're allowing you to unmute yourselves. Okay. And so if you have a question, you can raise your hand by going down to the reaction window and typing, raise hand. So, Nanda Gopal, you can unmute yourself. You have a question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes Prabhupada.
All
Maharaj,
good.
so in today's reading, there was a story regarding the dacoits and Nityananda Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
So I feel envy because they got to see Nityananda Mahaprabhu in their dreams, and like what it would take for a practicing devotee to have that kind of an experience.
I think you have to become a dacoit.
Thank you, Maharaj. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. You have to just start attack. Anyway, no. What you have to do, a practicing devotee, I think you have to engage in spreading Krishna consciousness. Because as Prabhupada said, the people want his lotus feet. Prabhupada said his lotus feet are always moving, so that means moving, and he's also preaching. So you have to do your best to spread Krishna consciousness, give Krishna consciousness to others, to manifest compassion for others. And in this way, Lord Nityananda will appear to you. because Lord Nityananda is compassion personified, the holy names personified. So that's the secret. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
All right. Sarva City, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my respectful obeisances.
Haribo, all glories Prabhupada.
Gurudev, I had a similar question to Nandagopal Prabhuji. I remembered the story you told us about the Brahmana who was, who was only drinking milk, and he kept begging Srivas Pandit to allow him to see the dance, and
Yeah.
then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt that okay, there is a non-devotee in the house, so he stopped dancing. So it constantly felt like Nityananda Prabhu is way more merciful than
Then Lord Chaitanya.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah.
Yes.
So it kind of starts to get confusing, because then when we say that as deities Gauranga Nitai Gaursundar, they are more merciful than any other deity. So is that how it is, Gurudev? Like, we should always, it kind of feels like we are trying to say, okay, if you want more compassion, go to Nityanand Prabhu, or if you if you want a difficult
No,
path,
I think you go to both of them.
yeah, yeah.
First of all, you approach Lord Chaitanya, as I mentioned many times. The hierarchy or the methodology for approaching Lord Chaitanya is first approach Nityananda, who is
Mm,
Balaram, the original guru. And
mm,
of course, Lord Nityananda is represented by your spiritual master. And
mm,
so this is how you approach, and there's an
mm,
etiquette.
mm.
I mean, you don't try to figure out who's more merciful. Is my guru more merciful, or is this other guru more merciful?
Yeah,
You actually follow the etiquette.
mm,
And that's the etiquette. One goes to the spiritual master by the spiritual master's mercy. One can approach Lord Nityananda, and
mm,
then you try to get rid of your anarthas, and then you come to be qualified to approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When you're qualified
mm,
to approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then you come to the ecstatic platform, and then by approaching Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if you want to understand the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, then
mm.
you go approach the six Goswamis of Vrindavan. So, of
Mm.
course, I mean, obviously, we're approaching all of them together. But the
Yeah.
method of receiving the mercy is by following that procedural etiquette.
Mm, mm, mm.
And if you try to jump and think,
Yeah.
oh, I don't need, like that Brahmin
Yeah.
that's being described in this particular section of the Caitanya Bhagavat, the
Mm,
Brahmin who didn't have faith in Lord Nityananda,
mm,
Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was correcting him.
mm, mm,
And then also in the case of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, his brother had faith in Lord Chaitanya and
mm.
no faith in Lord Nityananda. And because
Ah,
of that, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami left home.
mm,
He was
mm,
about 80 years old.
mm,
I don't know the exact age, but he was approximately
mm,
80 years old. And he left
mm,
home to go to Vrindavan. And
mm,
frankly, nobody leaves home at 80 years of age because you're pretty much decrepit at that
mm,
age.
mm,
I mean, I couldn't imagine just like dropping everything and forgetting about everybody. Of course, I have
mm,
no material home. But anyway,
mm,
forgetting about everybody and just going to the forest at 80 years
mm,
of age. Or just
mm,
living very simply in Vrindavan at 80. I'm
mm,
not 80. So
mm,
he did that because his brother did not have that sort of faith in Lord Nityananda, and actually had offended one of Lord Nityananda's devotees, Meena
mm,
Caitanya Ramdas. Okay?
mm. Thank you, Gurudev. Hare Krishna.
Okay. And now we have a question. It says Rihanna there. I guess that means Ratna Gopi. I guess that's her material name. So you
Hare
have a
Krishna,
question? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, thank you for reading for us. My question,
Okay.
I was wondering about the meanings of the names Chaitanya and Nityananda, if they have meanings like
Yeah,
the
Chaitanya means the living force of the living force of the living entities. Chaitanya. And then as far as Nityananda, that's pretty simple too. That is Nitya and Ananda. Ananda means bliss, or unlimited happiness. And Nitya means eternal. So eternal, unlimited happiness. That is Nityananda. Okay?
Wow, thank you.
All right. That's a pretty easy question. And finally, we have a question from Sumuk.
Dhanva Pranam Gurudev Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
You earlier read Nityananda is super soul in the heart. So now I'm confused.
Well, Nityananda's expansion is the super soul in the heart. Krishna's expansion. Krishna expands as as Balaram. In the same way, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expands as Nityananda, who is none different than Balaram. And then you have the expansions of the expansions, which are the Purusha avatars. Purusha avatar is the Mahavishnu. After the Mahavishnu, you got the Garbhodakshay Vishnu, who is the super soul of the universe. And then Garbhodakshay Vishnu expands as the Kshirodakshay Vishnu, who is the super soul in everyone's heart. So yes, Nityananda, and they're all not different from Nityananda and Chaitanya. So Nityananda is the super soul in everyone's heart. And Nityananda is Who? Someone is talking. So Nityananda is the super soul in everyone's heart. And Lord Chaitanya is the super soul because the expansion of the expansion, things equal to the same thing are equal to each other. All right? In one sense, there's no difference between Krishna and Paramatma because they're the same person, but there's differences in the manifestation. But Krishna and Paramatma, Advaita, this verse that I probably quote more than any other verse in the Rama Samhita, Advaita Chuta Nadir Ananta Rupa Majam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Durlabam Durlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. So there's one God and he has unlimited forms, but he's always the same person, doing different things in different places or all in the same time, all in the same place sometimes. He's inconceivable. Achintya Shakti. Vedeshu Durlabhamatma Bhakta. We cannot be understood by reading the Vedas, but only by someone who is a devotee. Okay, time to end. Thank you all very much. All glories to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Srila Prabhupada.